U.S. Army Special Forces, affectionately referred to as the Green Beret, are one of America's most elite and capable special operations units. They have been at the forefront of the fight against terrorism, but their operational relevancy goes back for decades. Special forces have a plethora of mission sets. Some of these include direct action, special reconnaissance, counterterrorism, counterinsurgency, foreign internal defense, unconventional warfare, security force assistance, information operations, and peace operations. History. Like many special operations forces, the special forces trace their lineage back to we. Several units laid the framework for special forces, among them the Alamo Scouts, Philippine Guerrillas' first special service force, and the operational group's Jedburgh teams within the Office of Strategic Services. The Alamo Scouts were a special reconnaissance unit attached to the 6th United States Army, working in the Pacific Theater. The 6th Army commander needed a unit consisting of small teams that could penetrate deep behind the Japanese lines. It was an all-volunteer unit. As the war progressed, these reconnaissance units took on a more offensive role, attacking the Japanese army and killing flag officers. They participated in general guerrilla warfare and direct action missions. One of their most notable missions was when they assisted in rescuing 513 POWs at the Cabanatuan POW camp. The Philippine guerrillas were a mix of American civilians and military personnel that evaded capture when the Japanese invaded the Philippines in 1941. This group came together and conducted resistance and intelligence gathering. The U.S. military recognized the group and began officially supporting its operations. The first Special Service Force was comprised of American and Canadian commandos. The unit was created to be dropped behind enemy lines and wage guerrilla-like warfare on the enemy. The men went through rigorous training in Helena, Montenay participating in airborne training, weapons training, hand-to-hand combat, land warfare, snow skiing, demolition, and overall fitness. The unit served in the Aleutian Islands, Italy, including the Battle of Anzio in France. In Vevey, the purpose of the OSS was to participate in espionage, reconnaissance, training local militants, and creating general chaos for the Germans behind their lines. One of their main secret weapons was the three-man Jedburgh teams, which parachuted into occupied Europe and created havoc for the Nazi army. While the OSS was not a military organization, it laid the framework for the Kia and Special Operations units such as the Navy SEALs and Special Forces. Members of the Army were assigned to the OSS and would be the ones to help with creating the Special Forces unit. The Special Forces came into existence in June of 1952, consisting of only the 10th Special Forces Group Airborne. Soon after, a portion of the 10th split and became the 7th Special Forces Group Airborne. The Special Forces Training School was known as the Psychological Warfare School, later becoming the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center and School. Soon after the creation of the Special Forces, America became locked into a conflict in Vietnam. There, Special Forces would see extensive combat. From then on, the unit has participated in just about every conflict America has been involved in. The specialization in unconventional warfare, direct action, and foreign internal defense have made them a hot commodity in the war on terror. The Green Beret. Often when people reference special forces, they refer to them as Green Berets. The operators get this name because of the Green Beret that all special forces earn and wear once they graduate from training. Members of the special forces were looking for a piece of headgear that would set them apart. They finally decided on the Green Beret in 1954. Since the beret was not officially a part of the uniform, there was a pushback, and the Special Forces members were told by the commander of Fort Bragg that they were not allowed to wear the berets. They did anyway. The commander's decision was reversed in 1961, and the Green Beret was made an official part of the uniform. President Kennedy ordered that the Green Beret only be worn by Special Forces soldiers. He said the beret was a symbol of excellence, a badge of courage, a mark of distinction in the fight for freedom. Special Forces training is extensive, demanding, and physically and mentally challenging. The training pipeline can be 53 to 95 weeks long. The length of training is determined by the specific military occupation specialty that a soldier chooses to pursue within the Special Forces community. Special Forces pull from three different groups. Civilians per the 18X program, enlisted soldiers that are active duty or National Guard, and Army officers of the rank of captain or captain promotional. Each group of candidates must meet different requirements to be approved for entry into Special Forces training. Illulian must be a U.S. citizen, must be at least 20 years old by ship date or Infantry 1 station unit training and not have reached 32nd birthday prior to the same ship date. Must qualify for airborne training. Must meet the physical fitness assessment of FAA minimum standard of 49 push-ups, 59 sit-ups, 15-12 2-mile run. Must be eligible for a secret security clearance. Enlisted soldier, active duty, National Guard. Must have a minimum rank of E3 and must be 20 years old at the start of Special Forces assessment and selection. Must not be older than 36 years wherever. For SAES attendants, must be eligible for a secret security clearance. Must be airborne, qualified or volunteer for airborne training. Must have no more than 14 years' time in service at D2E6. Must have no more than 12 years' time in service and 9 months' time in applying for the first course. Must be either airborne or Ranger qualified E7. Must have an ASVEB general technical score of 110 to 105 with a waiver, or a minimum combat score of 105 waiver. Must pass a Special Forces physical in accordance with our 4500. Must be able to reclassify from a herd, Meuse, or bronze. Must have a minimum of 36 months remaining time in service at the time he must not have 30 days or more lost time under USC 972 within his HEF current or preceding enlistments. The first step in becoming a Green Beret is attending the Special Forces Preparation Course Aspects BC. The course is 6 weeks long and designed to prepare students for the rigors and challenges of the Special Forces assessment, and the course concentrates on physical conditioning but also spends time on land navigation proficiency, which is an integral part of a Special Forces soldier's mission. Special Forces assessment and selection. After completion of SFP, students attend SAS. SAS is a 3-week course designed to weed out the weak. It provides a format wherein students can be assessed to determine if they have what it takes to make it through the Special Forces qualification course and to go on to be successful Special Forces soldiers. This course is physically punishing, but also mentally challenging. After being selected to advance from SFAS, candidates begin SEFSUKI, better known as the Q course. The Q course is broken down into 6 major sections. Special Forces Orientation Course 1 week, MUS training. The school varies, dependent on MUS. Collective training, also known as Robin Sage 4 weeks. Regimental first formation, language and culture in 5 weeks. Robin Sage is the culmination of Q course training. Students are placed in an arena spanning approximately 15 North Carolina counties. There, they are forced to use their training and prove their ability to succeed in an unconventional warfare environment. They are faced with challenges as a team and also individually. They have to navigate through a politically unstable country overcome with armed opposition. The training block involves hundreds of role players, including military personnel, law enforcement, and civilian volunteers. After completion at Robin Sage, students go through a ceremony and are given the right to wear the Green Beret and the Special Forces tab on their uniform. Of course, the work isn't over. These new Green Berets have to go through another 6 months of language and culture training. Once Green Berets arrive at their units, they're immersed in continuous training. They have the opportunity to attend advanced schools such as military FAI, the Combat Diver Qualification Course, and the Special Forces Sniper Course. Unit composition: a frontline Combat Special Forces unit is called a Special Forces Operational Detachment, better known as ODA. ODAs are comprised of 12 team members, usually consisting of an 18 commanding officer, 100 warrant officer, 18 sergeants, sergeant and iron sergeant, 2 18 field sergeants, 2 18 weapons sergeants, and 2 18 communication sergeants. By having 12 members and 2 soldiers for several of the roles, the team is able to split into 2 splinter teams when needed. This composition also allows for proper mentoring, since often these detachments have senior and junior members for each role. Lastly, it allows for redundancy. There are 6 detachments assigned to each Special Forces company. There are 3 companies per battalion and 4 battalions per Special Forces group. Currently, there are 7 Special Forces groups, 5 active duty, and 2 National Guard. Special Forces, high-profile operations. It was in Vietnam that the Special Forces built their legacy and laid the framework for their mission set. Starting in 1957, members of the first Special Forces groups began arriving in Vietnam to advise and help train the South Vietnamese. As the war gained momentum, Green Berets continued to train the South Vietnamese in counter-guerrilla operations. That concept became what we know today as Foreign Internal Defense Affairs. Throughout the Vietnam War, the 5th Special Forces Group did most of the heavy lifting. It participated in many covert missions with Military Assistance Command, Vietnam Studies, and Operations Group MAC SAW. Many of the missions involved going into Laos and Cambodia. The death rate was high for these types of missions. The Green Berets participated in many reconnaissance and direct action missions, along with training local fighters and other military units. By the war's end, 16 Medals of Honor and a Presidential Unit Citation would be awarded to the... After the attacks of September 11, 2001, America wanted to strike back quickly. The solution was Special Forces. Task Force Dagger and Task Force K-Bar were created in October 2001. Task Force Dagger was comprised of ODAs from the 5th Special Forces Group. Dagger's role was to covertly insert ODA units into northern Afghanistan, linking up with the Northern Alliance. TFK-Bar was a mix of ODAs and SEAL teams. Their role was to conduct special reconnaissance and site exploitation. Once inserted, these units began wreaking havoc on the enemy, calling in airstrikes and waging war against the Taliban and Al-Qaeda with their Northern Alliance counterparts. Special Forces were also the first units to enter Iraq in 2003. If we exclude Josh and Shire operatives, ODA units in Western Iraq were tasked with securing Iraqi missile-launched sites and providing intelligence for the main conventional force that was coming. Members of the 10th Special Forces Group were inserted into northern Iraq by helicopter. 10th Group members engaged in Operation Viking Hammer, where they killed 300 terrorists and discovered chemical weapons material left by Al-Qaeda. Special Forces units continue to deploy to Iraq and Afghanistan on a regular rotation. In addition, they deploy throughout the rest of the world, meeting their assigned roles and responsibilities. The demand for fit and unconventional warfare missions is not going away. The Special Forces are a key component in projecting the United States dominance and bringing the fight to the enemy.